adding and subtracting decimals. Hi, today's joke is about a couple that goes to the fair every year, and every year the husband always says, I really want to go on one of those airplane rides that goes up in the air and then comes back down. And his wife always tells him, it's too expensive, we don't have the extra money, and $10 is always $10. Well, the pilot of the airplane saw the couple and says to the husband, I'll take you, always want to go up in the airplane. I'll take you up in the airplane and give it to you for free, give you the ride for free, if you don't say a single word the entire flight. So the couple decides to go up in the airplane. When they land, the pilot says to the husband, wow, I thought for sure after that first flip you would have said something. And the husband said, well, I thought about saying something when my wife fell out, but $10 is $10. Today's lesson is adding and subtracting decimals. Our Indiana Academic Standard is 7.2.1, and we have a second standard of 7.2.4. 7.2.1 states solve addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division problems that use integers, fractions, decimals, and the combination of the four operations. We're focusing on decimals today. 7.2.4 says use estimation to decide whether answers are reasonable in problems involving fractions and decimals. So we're going to use estimation today to help us check our work and make sure that we did the problem correctly. We're going to look at three properties today. The first one is identity property of addition. Identity property of addition is simply the idea that the sum of 0 and a number is the number, or the sum of 0 and A is A. So simply put, the identity property of addition is when we add 0 to a number. When you add 0, you're going to get the identical number. So what would we add to 5.6 to get 5.6? We're going to add 0. What would we add to A to get A? Again, we would add 0. The commutative property of addition is simply changing the order of the addends does not change the sum. Changing the order of the addends does not change the sum. So in other words, if you had 2 plus 5 or 5 plus 2, it's the same thing. 1 and 2 tenths plus 3 and 4 tenths is the same as 3 and 4 tenths plus 1 and 2 tenths. It works with variables. A plus B is exactly the same as B plus A. The final property we're looking at today is associative property of addition. Associative property is changing the grouping of the addends does not change the sum. Changing the grouping of the addends does not change the sum. So if we look at our example here, we have 2 and 5 tenths plus 6 in parentheses, and then we're adding 4. We can change that grouping symbol and we can group together the 6 plus 4, which makes it a little bit easier to add in our head. And so when we rewrite this, we're going to rewrite it with the 6 plus 4 in parentheses. So all we did was move our grouping symbols around the 6 plus 4. We can do this with variables. Here we have A plus B being added together first, or we could move the symbols, which is what we're going to do over here. We have A outside of the parentheses, and then we're going to put B inside the parenthesis, B plus C inside the parenthesis. Pause the video at this time if you need more time to copy down the notes. You want to make sure you get everything copied into your notes. Don't forget to record questions you have along the way so that tomorrow you have a question to ask in class. Now we're ready to actually start adding and subtracting decimals. There's one major rule to remember whenever you add or subtract decimals. We always line up the decimal points when you add or subtract decimals. I want to stress, we always line up the decimal points when you add or subtract decimals. Now let's take a look at an example. We're going to be adding the decimals 2 and 1500ths, 7 and 632 thousandths, and 16 and 5/10. We're going to estimate our answer first. We know that 2.15 rounds to 2, 7.632 rounds to 8, and 16.5 rounds to 17. So our estimate is 27. So when we add these numbers, we're going to line up the decimal points. You can see here that the problem has been set up where the decimal points are lined up. I would suggest bringing the decimal point right straight down in your answer. Then you're ready to begin adding. 0 plus 2 plus 0 is 2. 5 plus 3 plus 0 is 8. 1 plus 6 plus 5 is 12. Write the 2, carry the 1. 1 plus 2 plus 7 plus 6 is 16. Write the 6 and carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So the total is 26 and 282 thousandths, which is close to 27. So our answer is reasonable. Pause the video at this time if you need more time to copy down the notes. You want to make sure you get everything copied into your notes. Don't forget to record questions you have along the way so that tomorrow you have a question to ask in class. Now I want you to try this problem on your own. Remember to always line up the decimal points before you add or subtract. Pause the video. When you're done working the problem, continue the video and check your work. When you line the decimal points up, the problem should have looked like this. Notice that 2 in the problem didn't have any numbers after the decimal point. And actually, if you look at the problem, that decimal point after the 2 is really the period in the sentence. Don't be thrown off if there isn't a decimal point. If there's no decimal point, it's just at the far right of the problem and is invisible. Some of you may find it helpful to add zeros where there aren't any numbers, just to keep things lined up. Those red zeros would be completely optional. You do not have to write them in on addition problems. You can see here that the final answer is 26 and 601 thousandths. Check your work. If you made a mistake, correct it before going on to the next page. For this next example, we're subtracting decimals. The problem is you have 5 and 8/100 minutes left on a CD. How much time will you have left after you record a 2 and 5/10 minute song? So we're going to take 5 and 8/100 minus 2 and 5/10. You can see that we've added a 0 so that all of the numbers line up. In this particular problem, we're going to have to do a lot of borrowing or regrouping. Again, when you're subtracting, I would strongly encourage you to bring the decimal point right straight down in your answer. So your decimal point would be right here. 8 minus 0 is 8. Because we've borrowed, we have 10 minus 5, which is 5. And 4 minus 2 is 2. You will have 2 and 58/100 minutes left on the CD. Now we're going to use some of the properties of addition to solve a problem mentally. The problem is 2/10 plus 15 and 7/10 plus 3 and 8/10. We can use compatible numbers to find the sum and the property of commutative property. We can rearrange the numbers. So if we take a look at this problem, 2/10 and 3 and 8/10 is 4. Then you can add 4 and 15 and 7/10 for a total of 19 7/10. Try these quick check problems on your own. Pause the video, work the problems out. When you're done, restart the video and check your answers. The solution to quick check problem number 2 is 11 89/100. Check your work. If it's not correct, please make the changes. For quick check number 3, using mental math to find this problem, we use our properties again. We're going to use commutative property to rearrange the numbers. We can take 4 4/10 and add 6/10 to that. That we can do very easily in our head, and we get 5. And we have 5 plus 5 3/10, which gives us 10 3/10. This concludes today's lesson. If you still need to copy any of the notes, please do so now. If you haven't written down any question, you need to write a question down. It can be a question that you already know the answer to, or a question that you actually came up with while you're working the problems that you don't understand. Please be sure to have a question in class with you tomorrow when you come to class. Have a good evening.